A new piece of reporting today, the kind that hits and you stop and you pull over on the sidewalk and read the whole thing. At least that's what I did. It's a potentially major development in the Jeffrey Epstein story. Remember last month we learned about Alex Acosta's testimony, Donald Trump's former Secretary of Labor and the prosecutor who just so happened to be behind Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 plea deal before landing in the Trump cabinet. Well, he told the House Oversight Committee that he did not recall any discussion of potential financial crimes as part of his office's Epstein investigation. But today, Bloomberg is reporting this revelation. Quote, emails and documents from Epstein's Yahoo account show that prosecutors in his office discussed the financial crimes component of the investigation with Acosta and copied him on correspondence about it. Congressman Robert Garcia, the ranking member on House Oversight, shared his alarm with my colleague Katie Tur last hour over this news of a money laundering investigation. Garcia also told Bloomberg this, quote, this information makes it incredibly clear that there is a massive cover-up happening right now. It appears that DOJ is likely sitting on evidence that Epstein's crimes were perhaps even bigger than have been publicly reported. I think this calls into question Acosta's entire testimony. Joining our conversation is Bloomberg senior investigative reporter Jason Leopold. He is bylined on that reporting we just read from. Michael Feinberg still with us. Jason, take us inside how these two things that seem impossible to coexist can be.
Well, it is really difficult to comprehend how, on the one hand, former U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta said that his office, he said this during his testimony in September, that his office was focused predominantly on Epstein's sex crimes. But through these emails and other documents that we've obtained, we found that there was a real money laundering investigation taking place. And it went on for 18 months, beginning in February 2007, going all the way until June 2008, when Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to that state charge in Florida. So this investigation, essentially, what it shows is that the U.S. attorney who was leading the probe at the time, she subpoenaed all of Epstein's financial records. She contacted one of his most important clients about the investigation, Les Wexner, the billionaire CEO of Victoria's Secret Limited, and she, was working on this case for quite some time. And Acosta was copied on all of these communications that were going back and forth between Epstein's attorneys and his office, Acosta's office, as well as Main Justice, that sought to undercut the prosecutor and try to get this case scuttled entirely.
Let me read from the reporting, and I have another question about that. Federal prosecutors expanded their probe into Epstein's sex crimes in 2007 to include potential charges of money laundering. The lead prosecutor requested that a grand jury issue subpoenas for, quote, every financial transaction conducted by Jeffrey Epstein and his 6 businesses dating to 2003. Emails show. Prosecutors also subpoenaed major banks for records about Epstein's accounts and financial activity, according to 2 people. Now, what is the scenario, Jason, wherein the politically appointed U.S. attorney and maybe even Main Justice wouldn't know if someone that is a financial heavyweight with the kind of high-level contacts Jeffrey Epstein had and those kind of holdings at a major bank wouldn't have been aware? I mean, what was there any precedent where somebody like that with that much money and that kind of sort of social and economic status wouldn't be flagged for the U.S. attorney in that office and Main DOJ as well?
I mean, it's a good question. That's one of the questions that we don't have, an answer to. And, it's interesting because these details about the money laundering investigation, as well as another financial crime, it's been completely erased from history, if you will. I mean, this is we're revealing this, for the first time. It was not included in the Justice Department report, the Office of Professional Responsibility report that came out in 2020 that took a look at the integrity of the U.S. Attorney's Office handling of the case. So, I mean, it's very odd. I mean, it's interesting that this investigation was happening for 18 months, and in fact, the lead prosecutor on the case, Marie Villafana, she had recommended a charge of money laundering, as well as one other financial crime, in a prosecution memo. This is the 82-page memo that we've heard about for quite some time, which again remains shrouded in secrecy. So I think with the reporting today that you've also seen from the New York Times about these suspicious transactions related to, Epstein's accounts at JP Morgan and other banks, that these are puzzle pieces that, starting to put together as to why the banks, one, either didn't flag him early enough, but two, what records and what kind of evidence did prosecutors get early on as they were following the money? And I think that's one important point, is that the prosecutors in Florida were following the money way before there was this, way before there was public interest in seeing that, and before, Congress started taking that on as well.
I mean, Michael Feinberg, it adds such depth to the political hunger. Again, this is an 80-20 issue. 81% of Americans would like to see the files released and believe Donald Trump is covering something up. He actually fares the worst, is viewed as most culpable, but his senior Department of Justice leaders don't fare very well either when those questions are asked by pollsters. But the money and the transactions, those are not subject to the sorts of character assassination that the victims of sex trafficking, some of them were children when those crimes took place. The documents are the documents. It seems like that would be a rather easy thing to release publicly.
Yeah, financial statements generally don't lie. It is, as you mentioned, hard to undermine their character. They don't shade the truth. They are printed numbers and words on a page, authoritatively provided by a bank or credit institution. But what this reporting reveals is that with every new fact we learn about that 2008 plea deal, we realize more and more it doesn't pass the smell test to a degree we wouldn't have thought possible the previous day. So much about it was irregular. We now know that there was a nascent money laundering investigation that apparently was just dropped somehow, despite the lead assistant U.S. attorney arguing for it in her pros memo. We know that, I believe, 36 alleged victims of Epstein were not consulted about the plea, even though DOJ policy generally requires victims be made aware of plea negotiations. Nothing about this seems above board.
The revenge president. Donald Trump's second run in the White House isn't about policy anymore. It's about payback. Every decision feels personal. The tariffs on India aren't really about oil. They're about dominance. The insults towards Colombia's president aren't about drugs. They're about humiliation. The threat to send troops into U.S. cities isn't a show of control. It's the performance of a man trying to prove he still owns fear. Trump has turned the presidency into a revenge tour, settling old scores with the world and using government like a weapon of emotion. When Trump feels cornered, he doesn't negotiate, he strikes. His politics have always run on the fuel of resentment towards critics, toward institutions, toward anyone who ever made him look weak. That's why this phase of his rule feels darker. It's powered not by ambition, but by grievance. He sees betrayal everywhere, from allies who didn't clap loud enough to judges who ruled against him. Each new target gives him a headline, and each act of retribution gives his followers the satisfaction of seeing someone punished. For them, it's justice. For him, it's survival. This week's moves fit that pattern perfectly. India gets slammed with tariffs because it didn't obey. Colombia gets insulted because it dared to answer back. The U.S. cities are threatened because some governors refused to bow. What ties them all together is not ideology, but impulse. The reflex of a man who believes politics is just another season of revenge TV. The danger is that revenge always demands escalation. Once you start punishing enemies, you have to keep finding new ones. Trump's circle grows smaller, his tone harsher, his vision narrower. Even allies begin to hesitate, unsure when the loyalty test will come for them. That's how isolation begins, not with diplomacy failing, but with trust evaporating. Trump once promised to drain the swamp. Instead, he drowned the country in his grudges. Every tweet, every threat, every tariff is just another echo of the same message. You hurt me, now I'll hurt you. That's not policy, that's pathology. And the longer it continues, the more America looks like a man chasing ghosts of the past instead of building a future.